I have to say right off the bat, I want in on the cult. Let me join.
All right. You can join my cult. We're gonna heal the world, brother.
Let's do it. Don't mind the shirt. I'm in.
It's time.
You mentioned in the press conference that when you're playing a villain, you don't want to consider yourself a villain. Can you explain why that's important to playing someone like Harrow?
Whenever I see someone mustache twirling or monologuing about how they want to destroy the world and everything, I just get a little bored because I don't believe it, that most of the people that inflict damage on others, the Stalins and Pol Pots of the universe, think they're good people. They think the ends justify their means because they somehow believe like a divine thing is happening with them, and they're megalomaniacs, And so I wanted him to make a lot of sense to himself. I think he thinks he's healing the world. He has to do some unfortunate things, but the world will be grateful.
You are Marvel Studios' first Middle Eastern character on screen. I wonder what was important to you in portraying that, and what kind of input did you have when it came to developing the background for this character?
We all sat together. We spent like 6 hours on every episode and had this kind of rehearsal process, and everyone was involved. And because she's not someone who's been in the comics, it took a while. It wasn't like, oh yeah, this is who she is. It took filming her for a couple months to be like, oh, this is who she is. And that came through really the stunts, a lot of it. I trained for 2 months. A lot of the physical work brought that out. But what I loved was being able to play, something I love about Arab women all over, but especially Arab women, is like, they have like a very soft strength to them. And I wanted to bring that to the screen, as opposed to being like, she has to look this way, like tough, or be really vulnerable. It's like, what if that comes together? And I pulled from women and myself in the Middle East, as opposed to like from the West.
We always see ourselves portrayed in such an inaccurate way. The tropes of seeing us through the Orientalist point of view, and women are submissive, men are bad or terrorists or those kind of things. So it was very important for me to show May as a strong female character. All my movies, and the 3 movies that I directed, have very, very strong female characters. My mom is strong, my wife is strong, my daughter is strong, and this is how they are. I wish that if I succeeded, this opens door to more people like me, or more people around the world, who actually their voices could be heard. Because we have, each of us, if you felt like this show is unique, it's because I have a unique point of view, because I'm unique and different. So I'm sure everyone through their own life have a different point of view that we need to hear and we need to see, and it's probably fresh and different.
What's going on?
Well, obviously, as you can imagine, we always from day one wanted to be respectful and reverential. And to do so, we brought in consultants, especially on the mental health side, because it's a challenge. We're obviously dealing with a superhero. We're dealing with a fictional representation of this, a supernatural infused representation. But, we worked with consultants to try to get the mental health aspect of it right, and always be, as I said, respectful. And I think, I think the fans, when the final frame is shown and lights come up after the final episode, I think they are going to feel that respect with which we worked with the mental illness. And then on the Egyptian side, part of that job got really, really easy when we hired Mohamed Diab. And it's one of the reasons why we hired the great Mohamed Diab. He's not just a storyteller, he's an Egyptian storyteller working at the top of his game. And everything that he comes to with the narrative, he comes through from an organic representation of Egypt, of Cairo. And that's why that became much easier, because it wasn't like, and we had great researchers on this show. We had a great production designer, Stefania Sella, always making authenticity first and foremost. But when your director lives there, grew up there, lives and breathes it, it made that aspect so much easier to represent properly. And I think we did so.
The guy's a real artist, he just is. And there's love for him because he puts a lot of love out into the world. He's a great listener, and a great thinker. And he knew that this was a huge opportunity for him to play on a really big canvas, and to really engage with Hollywood in a way that a lot of young filmmakers dream of, and that he wanted to do his best. And he just put forth tremendous effort and put his intelligence, and his wife too, Sarah. They're very kind, warm-hearted people who took the opportunity really seriously. And that inspires you to go to work when you know somebody really cares about what they're doing and it really is important to them.
A lot of it was we were kind of digging into our own experience and our own instincts on exactly what's exciting and what's thrilling and what's scary and what's personal. Really, again, what's personal was where we kept on digging. And Mohamed was exactly the same way, where there wasn't a whole lot of conversation around like, make this moment like this movie. And the reason is Moon Knight is a character that has no canonic affiliation with the Avengers necessarily. He doesn't have to. In some ways, he's an outcast from the main, the biggest characters in Marvel. And so we were kind of allowed to do exactly whatever we want, but also we needed to do something that was very, very left of center. And that was really exciting to us when we signed on.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're alive. What's wrong with you, Mark?
Why did you call me Mark?
But I do wonder which version of Moon Knight, whether it's Mark or Steven or Moon Knight himself, was the best scene partner for you. Which one was the most enjoyable to act alongside?
I loved Steven because he's such an open person. Mark is guarded, which in turn made me feel a bit guarded, right? Because you're like, what's gonna come out of this right now? And so Steven just felt like light and free, and he's such a nuanced, interesting character.
The first couple of days, or the first maybe couple of weeks, Oscar said, I only want to be Steven or Mark. I think he needed more time to be absolutely confident he can do that. I know he can. He's a genius. So one day we started doing those reflection scenes, and I just told him, let's try to do it it doesn't have to be 2 days. Let's try to do this. And all of a sudden, the camera is just panning back and forth, and he turns from Mark and Steven in seconds, and he inhibits them. And you have to know that it's not easy.
If Oscar is Mark in that moment, you'll know it without him even speaking. His face changes, his posture changes, everything. We were thinking we were gonna have to make big changes to wardrobe, relatively. It would have to be really conspicuous. No. Oscar can just do it with literally a look, a change in the muscles in his face.
I want to tell you something. When he's Steven, he's approachable. When he's Mark, he's scared. You're just like, you know what? You're on your own. Direct yourself. It's funny. It's fine. Do whatever you want. But that's how good he is.
When he was interested in this, we said, oh my gosh, this is an amazing opportunity to tell Moon Knight, because Moon Knight is such a complex character study first and foremost, that we needed somebody like Oscar, somebody who's at the top of their craft, which Oscar obviously is, to portray Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Moon Knight, Mr. Knight. And he came aboard and it was a breath of fresh air. He's amazing. May Calamawy is amazing. Ethan Hawke is absolutely jaw-dropping as Arthur Harrow. Our cast, our crew, our directors, this was an embarrassment of riches. This was working with a lot of people at the top of their game.
I remember I would be so tied to the lines, and I'd be like, no, I have to say this. And Oscar would be like, May, if you understand what you're saying, you can go off. And because I'd watch him and Ethan, and they would be so free. And I'm like, how do they do that? This is Marvel. How are they? I'm like, they really trust themselves. Then I'm like, I grew up in Bahrain, and I'm like, I feel like I'm English, ESL, it's my second language, but I'm also not perfect in Arabic. So, I sometimes didn't trust myself, and I had to give, that was something I've taken with me into other work of really understand what's going on. And then it doesn't matter if you fully stick to the script, unless of course they want you to, but Oscar would give me these nuggets of advice around, and it was really helpful.
Just as strictly as a fanboy, not even someone who works at Marvel, I'm so excited about some of the stuff that's coming up at Marvel that does have a slightly darker edge. I think when you do look at the tones and the themes that we deal with in Moon Knight, we talked about the action adventure of it all, the intense character study, the horror, the comedy, all that, the mind-bending journey that he goes on. I think he merges well in any corner of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But honestly, when you do look at the Doctor Stranges of the world, when you do look at Blade, when you do look at all those other shows that embrace what goes bump in the night, I'm excited about the future that Kevin has in his mind. And I can't wait to see where this character and many more land.
Amazing. Well, that's actually going to be our time today, but I really appreciate you taking a moment to talk to CinemaBlend.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad you're a member of my cult,
It must be very difficult. The voices in your head. There's chaos in you. Embrace it.